Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your take so far. More scrim results going down last night. OpTic with a big couple of sets against FaZe and then the Los Angeles Thieves. Strong words from Octane on the HyDra's current performance in this title, but FaZe, as it stands, still look like the team to beat. Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Before we get to the CDL stuff, these were the results yesterday of the Challenger side, where FeLo's team came out on top again. FeLo honestly has been an incredibly typical player over the last few years, for lack of a better term really, because he's been around many different teams. Of course, he was on Ravens last year. He was even briefly on the Dallas Empire a couple of years ago when they needed him to sub in briefly. And wherever he's been, Challengers, Pro League, he's still been a reasonably competitive force. Now, I will say, his online performances last year for Ravens were pretty horrific, but online, it was a better story. And even now, as an absolute veteran of the scene, he's still kind of putting in work. So yesterday, FeLo's team with FeLo, Lunas, Craze, and then Neptune, they won Elite Season 1 in NA Challengers for 70k. So great result for those guys. It is also worth noting here that the CDL, for all we say about them, and the fact that Challengers isn't very well supported, and like, I don't disagree, I'm not going to go back on those statements, but they have upped the prize money, I think, over the last couple of years that these guys win for doing well in Challengers. Names that you may be familiar with, Lunas was nearly in the league last year. I think he was linked quite a lot to the Minnesota Rocker. They never went for him in the end, although that was a possibility. He's been looking good. Craze as well, obviously FeLo. Difficult for guys like FeLo just because they've been in the league like so many times over the years. Are they going to be the next guy to get picked up? Not necessarily, although it should be a consideration. Neptune, though, is probably the man to look at right now. They took down iLLeY's team in the grand finals. So, yeah, and it wasn't even especially close. But even for iLLeY, right, the fact that he's getting second, in the same way that when Donny Temp, we don't exactly know what happened here, but after Temp was on Paris Legion, Vegas Legion, whatever it was at the time, and then they decided to go forwards without him, he then went to Challengers, and his intention, I guess, as every player's intention is, to go to Challengers, be the best player, get picked up to the league. That never really happened. Temp on his teams wasn't really in that conversation, and therefore it was difficult to get noticed as like the player to sign, and of course eventually his playing career has now come to a close. Whereas with iLLeY, he's at least keeping himself in the conversation because his teams are being pretty competitive, right? So we'll see if that leads anywhere for him. But as I say, the overall numbers, FeLo was killing it. But Neptune had a 1.06 in the cup overall, but I think Neptune's POV was particularly impressive. So lots of talk about maybe Neptune being the next man up. There's talk, of course, about, like, let's say the Vancouver Surge right now. Their change, Neptune, well, could he potentially improve their team? The change that they made Huke for Hicksy, in hindsight, doesn't really seem like the thing to do. And at the time, it was highly questionable from Rambo and the team over there. Maybe Surge will improve. They'll have a good weekend. If they don't, surely Neptune or maybe somebody from this roster might well be in, because especially with the major just around the corner, the winners of the most recent Challengers Elite and Cups and these type of things are always very relevant to who actually gets signed as and when teams need to make a change. But let's get into the scrims then, because last night a couple of scrim sets going down. OpTic, and to be fair, these had mega viewership as you might expect. I think there was easily 20,000 viewers across the streams here last night, which goes to show it's fantastic content and, you know, more numbers than some of the league matches sometimes tend to get. Here's Simp taking advantage of an opportunity here on, well, Shotzzy gets taken hostage and, well, the rest is history, I guess. But yeah, Simp and Shotzzy, of course, OpTic and FaZe playing each other in scrims last night, and it was mega. Scump was co-streaming it, others, obviously Zoomer as well, JP was streaming it too, and it's always nice to watch it from the codcaster perspective because you get to see everyone's POV. And FaZe don't seem to mind. I mean, you can watch their POV as far as they're concerned. They're going to say, well, we're just going to play better fundamental COD, it's not going to matter. And to be fair, FaZe's practice has been streamed now for weeks, and they've only got better and better, it seems. So there might be a bit of a takeaway there. There was also this, a clip that was being talked about here on the red card. Now, this again, is it a bit of a grey area? Because here's Dashy. Is he snaking the car? Is he not snaking the car? I mean, it's a matter for debate. Based on the new one pump rule, you know, maybe there's an argument for it, but still, I think looking back at that moment, we will just see it again here in a second when it decides to replay, but Dashy is effectively just using the cover, is he not? I think that's the main argument here, really, is that what else is Dashy meant to do? Okay, he goes prone because he's reloading his gun, then he stands up again, then he goes prone again because he's getting stunned. Okay, look, from that POV, it looks like he's bouncing up and down quite a lot, but you know, if you're getting stunned and shot at, then to some degree, like, what else are you meant to do? Okay, maybe you should just crouch behind the thing, but it's a car and there's holes in it. It's a grey area. It's always going to be a grey area, this snaking thing. But especially with the one pump rule now in place, Dashy might need to be a little bit careful with it, because if this, you know, obviously is followed through, which you might expect it to be, players that have been, you know, used to popping a couple of pumps in there, it may catch them out to some degree. But let's talk about the OpTic FaZe scrim, because that was first up, and this went FaZe's way. I will say, over these 7-8 maps they played, they didn't play the Hacienda in the end, FaZe outslayed OpTic by so many kills, and Cellium was really at the races yesterday, but it wasn't absolute annihilation. OpTic still put up a pretty good fight, so let's have a look at some of the scoreboards here. The Skyline was pretty crushing, especially a map that Shotzzy and Huke are usually pretty good on. Both of them had a pretty rough time here, and I will say, like, the slaying side from FaZe was absolutely mega, and it did translate into victories. But I think given that OpTic got outslayed by so much, really, in the grand scheme of things here, they might not be too unhappy with the series, but obviously you never want to get outslayed. It always, you know, leaves a sour taste in the mouth, I guess. I mean, this map especially, they got 122 points. They got absolutely slammed in the slaying department. Cellium has definitely been stepping up his game, and you can even tell it right here. Like, he's got 44 seconds in the hill, Drazah's got basically double that, but he's 34 in 20. He's got the most engagement, basically, yeah, in the entire lobby. So it's a pretty scary sign for the opposition, the way that Cellium is currently playing. They did OpTic win the Vault, 250, 199 in the end. Good map here from, you know, Kenny, actually. Again, Kenny's not had the greatest time, but, and you look at the other side, Cellium and Simp are pretty much delivering every single map. So FaZe are certainly a force right now. We know that they were struggling a few weeks ago. They've made some adaptations. Cellium's been working a lot on his play, but they go to the protocol, and OpTic win this one again. Kenny goes 31 in 21, so some good maps here from Kenny. This one, Simp goes 36 in 20 for the loss. I think there was another map that he went 36 in 20 for the win. So, yeah, Simp and Cellium are quickly getting into the conversation here for best player in the game. And it is interesting because obviously Cellium was way off that kind of discussion a while ago. Even this map, I mean, OpTic somehow got 208 points here. Drazah was plus 13, Cellium was plus 12, so that's plus 25, and Simp and aBeZy combined for plus 10. So OpTic were outslayed by 35 kills this map and lost by 40 points. So I don't know what to read into that, right? Like, are you happy if you're OpTic that you got slammed so bad but kept it close? If you're FaZe, you're thinking, wow, we should have, you know, closed it out easier than we did? Or if you're OpTic, do you look at it and say, 35 kills outslayed by? Like, that's not a good sign for, you know, our level of team cohesion, I guess. Shotzzy has nearly 3 minutes in the hill. Kenny's double negative. So, yeah, just some strange scoreboards emerging from yesterday. I think the main takeaway that many took from these series, though, was in the controls, because both the controls they played, especially the protocol, were particularly crushing, and FaZe won this series, you know, won this map without too much difficulty. Now, I think the debate is on OpTic versus FaZe's control playstyle. FaZe have always been an excellent control team, and over the last couple of years, or certainly last year when FaZe had OpTic's number, the control was often a very important swing mode. OpTic have this approach. Once they get 4 dead, or once they get map control, they like to put one player on the hill to tick up the time and stop the clock, and have the other 3 guys try and set up some sort of spawn trap. And that's, you know, an option. FaZe's approach tends to be, if they get some control, they will stack the point with like 3 guys. And I think that's the better approach. But OpTic's approach works well when it works, but it doesn't always work. Because if the guys going for the spawn traps die, or the guy in hill gets caught, all of a sudden you're actually not stopping the clock as you thought you were, and you know, you're not really winning on lives as you'd want to. So personally, I think FaZe's just pure approach to control over the last few years has been better, but sometimes it works for OpTic. Maybe that's what they prefer to do, but it didn't exactly work in this one last night. So in the end, it was 5-2 to FaZe in terms of the map count here. They won both of the controls they played. They won 3 of the hard points, and FaZe will, look, at least on this evidence, if things go well for FaZe this weekend in the CDL, we'll discuss the matches at the end of the video, they will be the favourites going into Major 1 in Madrid, pretty much regardless of what the seedings actually say. That would be my feeling anyway. But in 20, your thoughts OpTic then played Thieves. So let's not forget, Thieves at the start of the game, right when the game first launched, are considered to be, looking like the best team in the game. It was always difficult to say how their ARs and SMGs were going to work together, but the ceiling was undisputedly there. For whatever reason, since this Christmas break, they've not looked as good. HyDra went back home, he had to stay a little bit longer to get some visa stuff sorted, but even then, it's not been quite as strong, and they played 2 controls. The protocol was actually 2-2, but Scrappy lagged out, so people aren't really counting that one. But in the hardpoint, it was only protocol that Thieves won, and every other map was, okay, a couple of them were pretty close, but 3 of these maps were very crushing in favor of OpTic, a team that, of course, had just played FaZe and had a very hard time on this map here on the Skyline. So, Huke goes 38 in 26, as I say, it's typically a great map for him, and the talking point now really switches to Thieves, especially how their SMG duo is going to work, because I don't think there's too much debate on the ARs, although Scrappy hasn't been as good so far as we might have thought, and Scrappy has also been making talks about the fact that the AR isn't that good, maybe the Jackal needs to be changed with some, attachment nerfs and these type of things that we have discussed. Cellium doesn't seem to be finding it a problem, nor really does Dashy. And it's not like Scrappy's numbers are bad. He still is averaging a great KD on the season for his role, but it's not maybe what we'd usually expect. Kenny drops a 40 bomber here on the vault for the win, 250-237. Again, just some look at HyDra really, because we saw the series last year. There were 4 excellent players in the game. The 4 best players were Simp from FaZe, HyDra from New York Subliners, Scrappy from Toronto, and Shotzzy from OpTic. Those are the top 4 players in the game. You now have 2 of those guys on the same team in Los Angeles Thieves. And with Simp pretty much crushing it in their series against OpTic, you would expect HyDra to manage to do something similar on the evidence we have seen over the last few years. But honestly, that was just not the case. HyDra was having a hard time pretty much all of these maps. And as I say, you watch HyDra's POV, there's no doubt this guy is unbelievable, but for whatever reason, making that work for the team right now and actually getting on the right pace with Envoy doesn't necessarily seem to be working all that well. I know that this will raise questions in the very near future if this continues in their matches as to whether they brought the wrong guy, right? That's what people are going to say at some point, maybe they're already saying it. Should Toronto have basically Scrappy and CleanX gone to Thieves rather than Scrappy and Envoy? I feel like the Envoy decision, he's been good for them so far this year, there's no doubt, but how that dynamic works with HyDra, right now, it's a bit of a question mark. This map, though, was a Ghosty masterclass, 37 and 18. That was enough to get the job done. And if there is anyone on OpTic that is prone to a stinker, it is typically Kenny. He went 13 and 30 this map for the loss. But they bounced back and they dominated the red cards, 250 to 110. And again, HyDra was, I think he was negative in every map they played this series, which is not a great sign for the superstar SMG of the league. This one he was positive here before Scrappy lagged out, I think, of the game, and then this was also the Hacienda control, which Dashy was 34 and 20 on. Again, HyDra and Ghosty pretty steeply in the negative, and then this was the vault that OpTic 3-0'd them on, and again, you can see the numbers here. So, overall, pretty similar numbers from what happened FaZe versus OpTic, but it's pretty clear, I think, that OpTic were more competitive against FaZe than Thieves were against OpTic when they played later in the day, despite the fact that it was 5-2 on both occasions. So, yeah, very interesting. What does this mean for the matches? It is scrims at the end of the day, but it is potentially somewhat telling, and it's great to see that we actually have these to look at, I'm not going to lie. Octane then made the take on stream. That Paco, he's not that good at this game yet. Just putting it out there, not yet, he's not that good yet. And look, it was true last season as well. If you guys look at the Lion Man cards in the start of last season, he was not at his level until stage 2. Now, he was still excellent stage 1 last year on the subliners, but he did just get better with time, and we do tend to see that with HyDra every year. He might be like the new aBeZy to some degree. I don't know. If you guys remember, aBeZy would always turn up at the end of the year at the World Championship. Probably a pretty underrated SMG in his day as well. Maybe that's a bit of a trend. HyDra's going to take some time to figure it out. I think he will come good. The talent is undeniable. But yeah, Octane says he'll be fine. Just not what people expected quite as of yet. Let's talk about the games then for this weekend. Honestly, the Sunday's a bit of a banger. Even today, I would say there are some particularly interesting matches. So Surge Ravens, if Ravens crush Surge, they might have to blow it up. If Ravens could, though, still be fraudulent. If Vancouver can actually win a couple of hard points there, anything is possible. But yeah, I think you've got to take the Ravens. I'll take them 3-1 maybe. I'll have them winning the map 4, losing the map 1, something like that. Boston versus FaZe final game. it'll be interesting, but based on the results we've seen, I'm expecting FaZe to handle business there, really. And then Heretics Thieves. This is the middle game of the day, but actually, to me, a very intriguing one, because Heretics, we know they can be competitive with top teams at times, and obviously Thieves are going to be favourites, but it's absolutely plausible with Thieves' hardpoint looking shaky, this could be a game 5er. And if it is a game 5, I think I'll lean Thieves' way, because Heretics in that mode still suspect to say the least, but definitely some good series to keep your eyes on this weekend, especially the Sunday where basically every game is a banger. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
You have to spend money on neck surgery? Tilted, my girl loves my neck. Look at this thing. Yeah, nah, I mean, like, I didn't mean like that, bro. I didn't mean like that. I didn't mean like that. I did not mean it like that. Like,